Okay, you sign him a base. Okay, we left off over here. Amalei Abayla Rav Yosef. Okay, you sign him a base. Amalei Abayla Rav Yosef. The Mishnah says, Gimel Gitten Psulim. The three Gitten which are not valid. We had this before on Gimel and the base. They're not valid. Vimnisis Havalad Kosher. Even though they're not valid, but if she gets married and she has a child, the child's not even a mamzer midrabanan. Even on a rabbinic level, he's considered a fully kosher child.
Are they divorced?
No, he's not permitted to be with her. I mean, although we force the man to separate from that woman, we see the get not as a get, not as a valid get, but if she conceives from that man, the child is not illegitimate.
What is their status?
We see her as a non-divorced woman to marry someone else. Again, it's all rabbinical. Oh, it's so difficult. On the Torah level, she's divorced.
Oh, on Torah level, she's divorced.
On Torah level, all these Gitten are kosher. One of them is you didn't put a date. You didn't put it on the Torah level. You don't need a date in a get, correct?
Right.
Person gave a get without a date.
Right.
So we say if that you give a woman that kind of a get, and she goes now and is with another man, the man has to separate himself because it's not sufficient rabbinically to be with someone else.
Right.
But if she should conceive from that second person, the child's a kosher Jew.
Because they're rice.
Because midoraisa. What I'm saying is, you could say rabbinically, they could give him an illegitimate state, rabbinical illegitimate state. Let's say even rabbinically he's kosher. Still, but we're not bringing the point. The point is, what is one of the examples? Doesn't have a date. So if that's the case, Ma'ileh Chacham Takonoson. So Rashi explains whether the reason is peiros, or the reason is shilichaba basachoso. A man himself wants to protect his niece, even though the get itself has to have a date. He's not going to put a date in it, because he'll save his niece's life if she commits adultery.
It's not a proof. We've still got two reasons that it could be. We said Abai bringing the proof.
Not Abai. He's not bringing proof.
Abai's bringing
Rabbi Yochanan, Reish Lakish, each one gives their reason why they legislated the date in the get. So he says, if that is the case, the Mishnah says factually,
You don't need a date.
factually, it is considered a divorce on a Torah level.
Right.
So if that's the case, they can't put it to death. They can't put it to death. So if a man wants to save his wife, who's his niece, he's going to write it without a date, right? So that's the first question. Ma'o'ilu chacham b'takonoson. So what did they accomplish by legislating, enacting? You have to have a date in the get. On that, Gemara it's ahani d'lechatchilu sinosei. It's beneficial because she's not permitted to marry. So Rashi explains, says, when would a person do it? If it doesn't reflect bad on him. Man gives his wife a get where she commits adultery, it's his niece, and then afterwards, and doesn't, so she'll claim that she received it before she committed adultery. So it's not adultery. Before she had this illicit relationship. But if a get is supposed to have a date, and it doesn't have a date, what does it say? It reflects badly on her. And on the husband. What are you trying to come? On the husband. He did something for a reason. If you normally put a date, why don't you put a date? Evidently, that tells you you're trying to cover up. A person is not going to put himself in an embarrassing position. Since lechatchila, that's the type of get you're supposed to give. So if you don't give that get right away, it's in question. And it's attributed to what? Because the shenanigans. Either peiros or what? Or this, you're trying to cover up for your niece. Therefore, man's not going to do that. Okay? 1 second. Let's see Rashi. Rashi is mishum achos mishum peiros. Whether you learn like Rabbi Yochanan Shlokish. So since lechatchil is supposed to have a get with a date, if he'd want to write a get without a date to cover up for his niece, olimkor bepeiros, lo kosvu le sofri adayonim, lo chasbi alisadi. He's learning no. He says he's not going to get a sofa to write such a get for him. Since Chazal said, what?
He might want to do it to save his niece.
But the Sofrim are not going to write. They're not, right? Witness is not going to sign that contract because it's not a legal get. Even though the legality is rabbinical. But the Gemara says the next one, what do I said? The Gemara says even date, he'll cut it off. He'll shave off the date. He'll get the Sofer to write the legitimate get. And to save his niece, he'll shave it off, or she'll shave it off. Right? 1 second. Somewhere asks, Gazel Isman, the day, the other let Nello. The uncle, he'll cut off the date, and he'll give his wife the get. He'll give his niece the get. Mai, Omalei l'rami l'chashinon. We're not considered that the person is going to behave this way, that it'll be obvious that he's being deceptive. He's being deceitful. Rashi, Gazel Isman v'yavle, la'acha shekosbo Isman, he'll get the sofer to write the get. V'ilchapas baschos limko perus, v'yavan elo. V'amina the get shebozman, and since it says in the Mishnah, get that doesn't have a date, in this is havlat kosher, ukshemutzi also, harehi becheskes mugureshes, so she'll present the get, and she shows she's divorced, v'lo miktalo, and she won't be put to death. So if so, ma'il chacham takanoson. So what have the chacham, what have they accomplished? On that one, l'ramei l'chashina l'ramos kozer, shu nika v'niglech, this level of deception, which is obvious and revealed to all, what the motivation for this was, lo avidi inchilav da'avdi v'lo choshu rabonus. People don't do this, therefore the Chazal did not take this into account. This is so remote that a person would do such a thing because it reflects so badly on him to cut off the date.
Cut it off. But even not writing it looks bad, we said.
No. That main thing, the Sofer won't write it.
So they won't even write it without it.
Witness won't sign it, the Sofer won't write it. So he says, we'll cut it off.
So obviously, yeah.
That's so remote because it's so obvious. It's interesting. I once said, it's saving her life. So you look bad. You don't want to save your niece's life. So you say, man, your own life is one thing. You're willing to go so far for your niece. Beyond that you should be disgraced, not. But talking about the death penalty, right? So what are we talking about over here? So you see not. So I said something even more. It says in Novi that David HaMelech, he killed Goliath, killed Goliath, who was a Philistine. So the Gemara speaks, it explains the psukim in Novi that David, he was hunting, and he wandered into Philistine territory. So they went to the Melech Plishtim and said, the one who killed Goliath, he's here. So they took him into captivity. They arrested him, and David put on a show. That he was literally insane, mad. He was foaming at the mouth. There were fluids coming out of his nose. He behaved. He would have won the 29 Academy Awards on this one. David HaMelech. So the Melech Plishtim said, it's not possible. This man killed Goliath. This is David Melech Yisrael. It's not possible. They should send him off. No, he may resemble him, but that's not him. And they sent him off. That's David. So I asked the question, if God forbid such a thing would we be put in that position? Could we behave as David behaved? To that degree?
Could we or should we?
No, could you? David didn't go to drama school, to acting school. Could you behave that way and act that way to save your life? To save your life? Not possible. Why? Why could David do it? Why? Because it had to do with his genius or with his kedusha. Well, why could David do it? Why can't we do it? Andrew, what do you think?
No, we don't.
I'll tell you. You have a shul. They're putting on a Purim play. And they ask Andrew, because he's a Kohen, he should be the Kohen Gadol. Except he's a Kohen Gadol who's going to behave like a buffoon. Is he going to do it? No. Of course, how could he disgrace the Kuna? Right? So why can't we do it? Why could David do it? So what I said was, the person has a sense of self. To compromise your sense of self, to behave that way, even if it means to save your life, a person will not do it. Well, who's David? David is Talei V'Loish. David says, I'm a worm, I'm not a person. David is the third most humble person who ever lived. So therefore, like you put on tefillin, l'shem shamayim, and you do everything. What I mean, it's a question of what's saving my life. It's my obligation. But what about you? But you're disgracing yourself to behave this way. You can't lower yourself to that. What am I? What am I? A worm. So because the whole idea of, like I say, the ego, the I doesn't exist, you do what you have to do. That's the reason. David could do it, and that's why we can't do it. Okay? So therefore here, he's willing to do something to save his niece. We're talking about putting her to death. But if it's going to reflect badly on him, and people who say, you know why he did it? Because. But what about this? It's a question of life and death. He's not going to do it. Because that he's not going to compromise.
It's unlikely, it's near impossible for a get to not have a date because the sofer will write it and the agent won't sign it. Why don't they just say, you're presenting a get without a date, and Rabbi Yochanan, there's something going on here because nobody would write this and nobody would sign this.
Wait, no. Rabbi Yochanan is going the other way. They started, initially, why did they on the Torah level, one doesn't need a get. So if a date in the get. By monetary document, you need it because the question is to tell us when the debt came about to know whether it's liened or not liened. But a get is not a monetary document. That's where we started. So why did they enact and legislate a date in the get if the Torah doesn't require it? Rabbi Yochanan offered his reason. Rish Lakish offered his reason. Rabbi Yochanan says it shouldn't be a cover-up. Okay. So now, after everything's said and done, you must have a date. So the person says, what happens if he writes without a date? Answer is, you're not going to get a sofer or witnesses to sign such a thing. To write it or sign it. So it's not a problem. And you may, it's very remote, but basically we've been sufficiently effective. We've covered all the bases, right? We don't have to be concerned. That's submersive. But even after that, he still could cut it off and give it to her. And that the more says, because since it reflects badly on him, he's not going to do it. Right?
We said that since it reflects badly, even
You
if he
understand?
doesn't sign it.
I do.
So what's the question? You're asking Rabbi Yochanan is speaking, is it speaking?
Reason could never come into play because all suffering are limited in the laws given and putting on the date.
Definitely, that's basic.
Right, so therefore they would never get rid. So somebody who presents the get without a date, they know there's something going on.
That he must have cut it off.
Right.
He must have go because every get's supposed to have a date.
It's not so much that it reflects on the uncle. It's
No,
more
therefore
like
it reflects.
some situation.
No, if the sofa would have written the date, so why doesn't it have a date? He must have cut it off.
Right.
So why did he cut it off? So that starts reflecting badly on the uncle, on the husband. Therefore, he's not going to do it. He's not going to compromise himself for the sake of saving his niece's life.
But he does. According to Rabbi Yochanan, he will, but not.
No, he
by not
won't. He
dating-
won't.
by
He
not
won't.
dating- By not dating the get, he's showing that he does. He will compromise himself to save his niece.
If one doesn't need a date, you don't need. If you don't need a date, he's not compromising anything.
Rabbi Yochanan is saying that you need to have a date. You need
No,
to
Rabbi Yochanan says, Chazal said you need a date.
sign a date. And
Now he's only come to offer, why did Chazal say?
Because of a chosa, because of his
Good,
niece.
good. So now, okay.
Right, so otherwise he would have not put a date on there because he wants to
It's
save
not
his
for
niece's life.
so therefore, right. So how does it reflect? If they would have
So-
never said you have to have a date, how does it reflect badly on him? He said he divorced his wife. Finished. The end of the story. How does that reflect badly on him?
So
There's no need to put a date.
you're saying that when he would erase the date, that would reflect.
Cut it off. Now that you have to have a date,
Cut
you
it
cut.
off, whatever.
So now
That
the
would
question is
reflect
why?
that. That's
That-
all.
Correct.
So why did say that the guy is cooking them? You would think that.
Because they didn't go to that. They didn't validate to that degree that they said that what on the Torah level she's divorced, the child's not a mom. You know, we don't want to increase mamzerus. So therefore, for that reason, they said it's kosher, the child's kosher, but she can't remain with the second man until she gets a legal get.
But Rabbi, in case of need, the edim could replace the date. They could testify that it was signed on such and such a date, can't they? So even if the man cuts up the date on the get, the edim are there to testify that it was done on such and such a date.
We'll see. It's not simple.
Well,
See,
they
we have to see
don't know
all the
when it's
cases.
given, though. I didn't know when it's given, not when it's written.
Yeah, but according to Rabbeinu Tam, whether you're the Edim Sir Karsi or a Chsim Karsi, you have to have witnesses at that. So you do have witnesses when it gets given.
When it's written.
When it's written, yeah.
So those gates...
One sec. So now another question. Now, what's considered a date? No, the Mishnah tells us in Sanhedrin that when you interrogate witnesses, you have to ask multiple questions. What do you ask? You ask the sabbatical cycle. You ask the year in the sabbatical cycle, when they witnessed. You ask the month. You ask the day of the week, and the hour of the day when it happened. And why? Because you have to know exactly when, because Eidim, when they testify, they have to be Eidim, right? They have to be in a position that you could be mazim them, that you could find them conspiring. So if you don't have all that, you can't say that you should be able to say, you need Eidim Shal Yochel Azima, that you could find them conspiring. So if you don't have all the information, when he testified, like now, person says, I saw it at this date, this hour, this location. Wait a second. So if you don't have every detail of that, what happens? Other ones can't say Imanu Yisum. How could you testify you elsewhere? He didn't give the information. So by offering all that information, now you have them very specifically identified. So now it's Eidish Teichel Azima, correct? It's the Mishnah in Sanhedrin, right? So now, what about if you put it? What's a date in regard to a document? Do you have to put the sabbatical cycle, the year, the month, and the day? What about if you just put the sabbatical cycle? It's the third sabbatical cycle. That's what you put in the date. Is that sufficient?
I mean, how do they specify this? How do you say the third sabbatical cycle from what?
Well, they have it. Let's say it's 5,000, whatever it is, it's the third sabbatical cycle. Right?
Are you put in the year or not?
You don't put the year in. You just put it in the sabbatical cycle.
Right, so it's the 7-year span.
What about if you put the year, but you don't put the month of the year and the day of the month? Right? That's the more. Is that considered a valid date, or is that not a valid date? Do you have to be very specific?
So what about it?
Wait. So if it's so ambiguous, again, he could cover up for his daughter, his
Even
niece.
even the day they get married. He writes it in the morning, and they sign it before night. You still have a gap of, let's say, 10 hours. You could say the same thing. And that's another case.
You don't put a date in the Shtar Kedushin.
What?
You don't put a date in the Shtar Kedushin.
Do the day of get. Put the day in.
But I'm asking, factually, when Chazal require a date, you need the day that the get is being written and given and signed or given. So we'll see in a moment. You don't. You don't. So I'm going to ask again the question. So if that's the case, if you could write such an ambiguous date, so what have we accomplished again?
Right.
He'll write such a get with such a date when she committed adultery. We'll see.
I don't understand.
One second. Kosovo Shavua, Shona Chodesh, Shabbos, Mai. Right? He writes the Shavua, the year, the month, or the week. But he doesn't write the day of the week. Is it valid? Is that considered a valid date? Omali kosher. So Rav Yosef says Tabai, it's kosher. So again, Mahu ilu chachom takonoso. So what have they accomplished? So Rashi says, Kosovo zmanu b'shua ploni shel yovel, lo kosov ezeshona. It says it's the what? It's the cycle of the yovel, the third, fourth, whatever it is. Lo kosov shona, lo kosov chodesh, lo kosov chodesh, lo kosov Shabbos. He wrote the month. He didn't write which day of the month, which week of the month. Lo kosov Shabbos, lo kosov yomai. It's the third week. He didn't write which day of the week. So there's nothing to prevent him from writing such an ambiguous date. So what have we accomplished? On that, Gemara answers. Ahanu l'shua b'kamei. At least we know in which sabbatical cycle did she commit adultery. L'shua d'basrei. We know it wasn't before, it wasn't after. Dilo temahochi yom gufei. What about when you write the date? Do you write it the morning? You don't write the hour of the date. So maybe she committed adultery in the morning, and he'll put that date, and she'll claim she was divorced before the moment she committed adultery. Because we said, kosher b'laylo, v'nosa b'yom, it's kosher. Right? Maybe she committed adultery that night, and he gave her the get the next morning. The uncle. So he's covering for her. And she'll say she was divorced, she was given the get the night before she committed adultery. So biyadini mitzafro imipanyo. Do you know whether it was given in the morning and the afternoon? El yom de kamei, yom de basri. You know, it wasn't the previous day, it wasn't the following day. So identically here, since we can't get it down that specifically to the moment, So therefore also, l'shvur the kamei, l'shvur the basrei, therefore it's valid.
Why not? Why can't you get it down? Why can't we be so specific? Sounds
They
like-
never said the hour. The hour they never required.
But still, there's a huge difference between the hour and the 7-year cycle.
No, I understand.
If Rabbanim were trying to prevent something, which is an extraordinarily ineffective way, and they could have legislated it in a way that was more effective.
So, according to
I
this,
agree.
all you have to do is the date is put the
7
sabbatical.
years.
Does want to cover up for his niece.
You can either.
I think it's a combination of two things. We said before, whenever something is done in a certain way, we could have done it better. There's a question asked immediately, right? If you could have written the day, why did you write the sabbatical cycle? Why did you write the year? It's valid, but the question is being asked. You understand? So, factually, even the day, if you write the day, people don't ask a question, right? Because they never legislated. You have to write the moment of the day, the time of the day, right? So since on the day itself, you don't have it that specific, so they said we accept it to be valid. But factually, again, he's not going to do it. If factually you could have written it right, or more right, what are you writing it? It's like a sloppy get. Why did you write a sloppy get? And it's not you, the Sophie. Yes, the Sophie. Don't put in the date, just put in the sabbatical. So why? So even though it's kosher, it's not one of the Gitten psulim. But factually, right? I mean, it's less. He would do it. It's kosher. We say it is valid. L'chatchila it's kosher.
Right.
That's called. That's considered a date.
I understand, but just because it's sofer, it's kosher.
The sofa does what you tell him to do. Finished. As long as he says, Ben says, I want to coach get. I don't need. I don't need the 5-star get. I'm willing to go coach on this one. He doesn't need it. It's like years ago, Western Union, they charge you for every word. He's charging for every word over here. He says, I don't need it.
You have the same problem with a piece of land that gets split on the same day, right? They never put in the hour.
Therefore, what?
Why would you think that the gap would be more specific?
I'm talking about the hour, I'm talking about the year.
I'm talking about the hour, but then within the day, you have the same
That
problem.
wasn't legislated.
Wait. Let's say it's a monetary document. The person puts in the sabbatical year. That we would say we wouldn't let the man collect. That's not called predated. Because since it's ambiguous, the people who purchase, they'll say, prove to me exactly when the lien was, otherwise we're not giving it to you.
But in the case where a person buys and sells property within one day,
Okay, so therefore,
we can't work out what the priority is, correct? We don't know who bought it first and who sold it first.
okay. I mean, the Gemara speaks.
We don't demand
The Gemara says, if you have two identical shtoros, Reuven gifted a property to Shimon, and gifted it to Levi on the same day. And if you hold an ein kosven shows b'Yushalayim, some communities they did write the hour regarding a monetary document, but in Yerushalayim they didn't write the hour; they just wrote the date. So what do? There's no way to know. And again, and when is the document effective? He says, what about you summon the witnesses? Right? First, the witnesses. When did they sign on the document? Right? They're not there when the document's transferred. You could just transfer without it. Right? You have the deeds. You give it over. So over there, there's a whole discussion. You say Yachloko or shoot at Daini. There's no way to know who. They both took effect identically at the same time. Of course, it says it's the end of the day. For who did it take effect? For Reuven, for Shimon. For Shimon or Levi. So the Gemara says one opinion is Yachloko, the other one says shoot at Daini. It's a toss of a coin. Okay, let's go further.
I don't understand. It's so important that the fiducian is as important as the gift. Why no signature?
No, there is a signature.
You said that there's no requirement.
No. A date.
A date.
We're going to see. Tosus quotes the Gemara in Yevamos. Why there's no date on
Because it's as a wedding is as important as the whole.
No, because the date is not. We'll see.
Because the woman could commit all kinds of things before the wedding or after.
We'll see. Tosus discusses this. Tosus discusses it. Let's take a look at Tosus. Gazul Isman B'Yovinelo. The Gemara says, even if the sofer writes the date and the witness signed on a dated get, he could cut it off and he'll give her after he shaves it off. V'odam perakama perak dalad achim. This is what you're addressing, Rabbi. Dabnei malo tiknu zman b'kedushin. The Gemara asks, why didn't they legislate a date in a shtar kedushin? Okay, in a marriage document. Mishum, so the Gemara says, Mishum nechin navit. What should we do? Nintche gabi dido. Right? When a woman receives a shtar kedushin, that means that you marry with her. That means she receives the documents, and the documents in her possession. Second. Wait. No, we'll see. The Gemara is going to ask. No, the ksuba is something else.
It was a monetary.
Monetary, it's because, again, there has to do with lien properties. There will say, there, it's not in her best interest to cut off the date. She cuts off the date there, she's left holding the bag. She's not going to be able to collect. But over here, where it's not monetary, where Tzimara says, if we leave the get, she's going to erase the date. Tzimara says, Uporach, the Gemara asks, when you give a woman a get, the get's with her. She'll also cut off the date. Right? The Gemara asks the question. As he's saying, the reason why the date has no value is because what do we come? The get's in her possession. In her possession, she's going to erase the date. So the get also. Right? Because it's there. It's a question of saving a life. 1 second. Lokamish kunchis, meaning she will not erase the date. The woman will not erase the date. He quotes Rashi. She's not like Rashi. The mocha loikatlina lo. He says if she cuts off the date of the get, she's going to be put to death. Why? Yeah. So listen. Until the get, the presumed status was she was Neishes Ish. And now there's a question: when was she divorced? So Chazaka tells me when she was divorced, the last moment possible. So therefore, we treat her as a bona fide Neishes Ish until we definitely know that she was not divorced. Therefore, she's going to be put to death. 1 second. Although if they didn't legislate the date, he could have covered for why? The misveikel katlina law. Because it's a suffix. Factually, we don't know when she was divorced. But now that we did legislate the date, and there was a date, this is where Rashi learns. Now that the date, there's no date, now we're going to put it to death. Stop. You go ahead.
I don't understand how you can have this chazaka, which is Doraisa level. At Doraisa level, you don't need a date. The things we just said that it's not mamzers because on
the right level.
Wait.
Right.
Well, that's going to be Tosa's question on Rashi. That's Tosa's question on Rashi. If in fact the child's kosher, how do you put it? What do you mean you put it to death?
Exactly.
Right? Tosa's going to ask this question. Exactly what you're asking. But Rashi says now there's a date. Why won't she cut it off? Because she's cheskes ish. Should we put to death? Before we go to ask that question, which Tosa, let's say, if there wouldn't have been a date, and she's a cheskes ish, she also is a cheskes ish. She committed adultery. So what are we going to say? Put it to death. You can't, because maybe the get preceded the illicit act. But now that there's a date, and we don't know what the date was, now we're going to impose the cheskes issues. Why don't you have the same question? You have the same question.
What do you mean you don't know when the date was?
Because you cut it off.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So why should you put it to death?
Exactly.
You have the same question. Maybe the date. So what difference does it make? Right? But Joseph said, the way Rashi is learning, no, it makes a difference. Okay? So I was thinking, this is what I was thinking. Before they legislated a date that there has to be, they didn't get, a woman has a cheskes kashrus also. Right? As she has a cheskes eishes, she has a cheskes kashrus that she's not going to commit adultery. Mm-hmm. So if there's no, initially you're not supposed to, there's no reason to have a date. So the presumption would be, she has a get. Cheskes kashrus tells me that she didn't commit adultery. Doing an illicit act doesn't in any way undermine the cheskes kashrus. Cheskes kashrus, because it's a different level. I mean, a person that eats kosher doesn't eat kosher. Does he have a cheskes kashrus that he doesn't commit murder? It's a whole different dimension of transgression. That's a separate question. I mean, if we're talking about she was forewarned, and she wait.
criteria of adultery, which is releasing herself.
So if that's the case, how could she? But yeah, we still say the Shemei Chaper.
Say what?
We still say that she could use the get as a cover-up. She could ask him, why did you acknowledge but you acknowledge, she say, a kasha for Maisa. No question. It's like the Gemara says that if a person approaches a person and says, you owe me $100, and he says, yes, I owe you $100. So we would normally say, Hodos Baldin Canadian dummy. If you admit you owe money, it's like witnesses. The halacha is the person will say, Mashatini, but I was joking. He wouldn't be joking, but you said you owe me $100. He said, like, you came to me with a nonsensical claim. I responded to your nonsense.
If you're married to someone and someone says to you, don't screw yourself to a person, and you're married, just ignore them. What do you have to respond?
No, because it's so preposterous.
Right.
Person, no. That's what he's answering. I mean, here they're actually witnessing she's committing adultery.
So how does it?
It's more than seclusion. It's more than seclusion.
Because they don't know when the get was given or not.
No, they know she's a married woman. They know she's a married woman. So she says, Afal P came. Regardless of the consequences, I'm having this relationship. That's what she says to the witnesses. She acknowledges it. She has the get, we're not going to put it to death. Right? Because we say she has a get. But now that you have to have a date, she shaves off the date, now it becomes a problem. So it could be cutting off the date, that undermines our cheskes kashrus. You understand? Acknowledging, say, Mashat Enibach, but what are you cutting off the date? This is not playing games over here.
Acknowledging the witnesses that despite of what you said, I'm doing it anyway, it doesn't undermine their
To say that it was adultery. Because again, she's responding in kind, as you're talking to me, which is baseless. I'm responding also to something that's undermines her cheskes kashrus.
But she lost that cheskes kashrus as having an affair.
No, it's a different level of cheskes kashrus.
That seems a lot worse than cutting off the date.
No. The get directly is in relation to adultery. Otherwise, why should a person cut off a date? Right?
Okay.
Having an illicit relationship has nothing to do with adultery. It does not be adultery in an illicit relationship. You following?
Right. But even
Why would a person cut off a date? Only for one
to
reason.
protect herself.
From what? That she's not an adulteress.
Correct.
Illicit affair, we know you had an illicit affair. We have witnesses.
Okay.
So why did you cut off the date? The answer is because you had an adulterous affair. So therefore that immediately is in contradiction with your cheskes kashrus.
Even though we knew she had an adulterous affair because of the witness.
We didn't know. They didn't know. They assumed it was adulterous. They don't know whether she received the get or not.
How can you assume she's an adulteress and she's up to the death penalty? Or you didn't know that yet?
Yeah.
She's not going to get the death penalty. We don't know that until she erases the date that shows that she...
Rashi learns if she cuts off the date, she can be put to death.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, because that is in direct in contradiction with the cheskes kashrus.
Even though there's no witnesses to prove that she's an adulteress, she still gets the...
No, they just said she had this adulterous affair, finished, this illicit affair. And because she had a cheskes ish, therefore we treat her like an adulteress.
How do we know she cut off? What if the dog bit it off?
Then she has to bring a proof that the dog bit it off. Right? The average woman has a date. Why don't you have a date? Why is your document, why doesn't it have a date? The sofa put on a date, because no sofa doesn't put on a date. Witnesses won't sign a document. Evidently you cut off for a reason. I mean, Tosafot disagrees. Tosafot says it's still not enough reason to put it to death. But I'm just saying, I'm just coming to the way Rashi, Tosafot explained. Before the takara, we wouldn't put it to death, although she had a cheskes ish. Afterwards, we will. So that's what I'm saying, because she loses the cheskes kashrus.
Is the onus now on her to prove her innocence?
To save her life. Otherwise, we treat her like a bona fide married woman who committed adultery. Correct.
Yeah, but there's no...
The cheskes issue tells me, the cheskes tells me that although she had a cheskes issue, it should happen afterwards. Because she has a get. She was divorced. Our question is when. Cheskes kashrus said it was before the affair.
That's circumstantial evidence, though. It's not real proof.
What circumstantial
Because
evidence?
she's saying she cut out the date. So, so now you're proving to us that you lost your cheskes and you did commit an adulterous affair.
No, there's not circumstantial evidence.
Well,
That's
where's
not-
the witnesses? Where's the forewarning? That has to be
No, the witnesses forewarned her.
So then, at that time, then that's the time that she's an adulteress.
But she has to be married to be an adulteress. That's the question. Is she married at that moment? She claims she was married because she has a document. So we ask her, so where's the date? Why did you cut it off?
So that's gonna make her.
That meeting, so if you have Cheskes Eishes Ish, it says she was Neishes Ish till the last moment. So since you're only presenting the document
Even though
today...
you don't know that, because
You're
you
going
don't know that.
chazak against, yeah.
If you don't know
Right.
that-
If you have both chazakas, then they cancel each other. I mean, then she'll
Right,
say-
right.
Still not
So that's
true.
before the
Take
takona.
away there, right.
So you have one, so you only have
You
Cheskes
can't,
Eishes
you
Ish.
can't put anybody's death with the chazak.
Yes, you can.
But you
Sure.
can't put
Every
something
woman's
with the
Cheskes Eishes Ish, she claims she was divorced. It's irrelevant what you claim. You have Cheskes Eishes Ish.
Rabbi, I thought we learned that you can't consider that.
Yeah.
That's only if the chazaka is ruling. But if there's a presumptive status, you put any woman commits adultery. How do you put it that maybe she was divorced? The answer is Cheskes Eishes Ish. It's only if the chazaka comes to rule at this moment. Chazaka is not ruling at this moment.
It sounds like it.
No, she is that. She's already in the state of Eishes Ish. Understand?
That,
Chazak is not coming to put it down. Chazak is already there.
What put her
The
in-
chazaka is there.
What put her in the state of Asian fish? The fact
That she was married originally.
that she was,
She was married originally. I have a get, but the get is not in contradiction to that.
but she was married because they were living that way? That's
No,
not-
the witnesses she got married 60 years ago. That's why she's married. Okay? But that's the way Rashi learns. So therefore, the Gemara says, that's why the woman is not going to cut off the get, the date of the get. She's not going to cut it off. 1 second. So Tosas asks, there you go. Over here, the Gemara says clearly that if she cuts off the date, you don't put it to death. Why? Because the Gemara asked originally, "Ma'ilu t'chacham takonosom."
right.
What did they accomplish?
Right.
Maybe the Gemara only asked because of peri. I mean, Tosas could have asked better. I mean, like what Andrew's asking. It says explicitly that what? The lot's kosher. So the lot's kosher. I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, he could have just asked it more from the Mishnah rather than from the Gemara's question. If the child's kosher, clearly it's not an adulterous act. El Omeri dochi perusho. Says something. Hosum latzola dido kosi aget bo latzilo. What is the value of get to a woman? To save her life. She mgureshes. It's the proof she's divorced. Lekach yureya limcho kazman. Therefore, she's afraid to tamper with that. Why? Ki svura sheyivsol bekach. Because she doesn't know the halacha. She believes that a tampered get is not a valid get. So if that's the case, this would be the base thing for incrimination.
Definitely.
Should definitely be put to death.
Yeah.
In fact, she will not be put to death. But because of her ignorance of the halacha, she may believe that. But truthfully, if she does, you don't. But regarding Kedushin, it's what? It will incriminate her. There, she will cut it off. She believes by tampering will invalidate it. So by a Kedushin, let's say she commits adultery. You have to prove she was married. So there she'll cut it off. Because she believes by tampering, that means the original Shtar Kedushin is not a valid get, a valid Kedushin. Therefore, we can't leave it. That's the reason why dating it has no value. Because there she's going to extricate herself if she cuts off. Right? Believing that a tampered document is not a valid document. But by get, because it's not valid, just to the contrary.
She's married.
She's married, so she's actually incriminating.
That the reason everything works is because the woman is victim.
Most people are. Most people are ignorant. You have to be fully proficient in halach to know whether it is or whether it's not.